Welcome back to another edition of the Inner Edge podcast. Today's conversation is one I'm genuinely excited about because it touches something deeply human. I'm honored to be joined here with Dr. Juda Alcabes, whose work brings together emotional growth, psychology, creativity, humor, improvisation, and real human connection. What makes this conversation so powerful is that we're not just talking about improv as a performance. We're talking about improv as a way of life because so much of life does not come with a script. Marriage, parenting, relationships, growth, pain, change, they all ask us to be present, flexible, and open when things do not go as planned. I'm going to call you Judah.
Yeah, please.
Judah helps people understand that play is not childish, humor is not shallow, spontaneity is not chaos. Sometimes these are the very doorways into healing and connection. And today we're going to explore his story, his background, how improv shaped his professional life, maybe even personal life, and what he's learned about fear, emotional safety, growth, and courage. I'm going to call you Judah.
Yeah,
Judah,
yeah.
welcome. I'm grateful that you came, you arrived here into Edison, New Jersey. Can you tell us, before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about your life, how you got into this profession, where you grew up? I'm throwing in a few questions at once.
Yeah. Okay, so I grew up in Queens, New York here, Forest Hills, and then moved to Kew Garden Hills after that, for people who are familiar with, New York. Forest Hills, growing up in Forest Hills, it was really, the Jewish community was tiny. And it was, I believe it was more vibrant before I was born, but kind of like the time that I was born was really the decline of it. And so growing up there was actually no Jewish kids within. I mean, there was like a 15-minute walk away. There was one family in an apartment building that was our only friends. They had two kids.
Wow.
And they were like our only friends in the immediate area. So, Shabbos afternoon was either very boring in our house or was like very boring with the two other kids in the community. And I don't think this is the source of it, but we got really creative in entertaining ourselves. Me and my brothers would make up games and make up stories. And um, I don't know if it would have been the same if I would have grown up around a lot of kids, if we would have just been doing more of it with more different kids and whatever. I did go to large schools and I went to sleepaway camp. And so, socializing was a big part of my world, but there was also this small part. And in this small part, it was like me, my brothers, and this boy and this girl. And it was like the five of us just making stuff up. And I do think back on those times like very fondly, the way that we would be very creative and just make something out of nothing. I do think there are a lot of ways that I ended up in the improvising world, but that's definitely one of them. That's kind of like an origin piece of it, which is
Wow.
cool. I think about that often. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Forest Hills. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And what about your professional life? How did you get into the improv world?
Yeah. So professionally, I've been a therapist. I graduated in 2013 from social work school, Long Island University. Go Blackbirds, I guess. I don't know. I think that's 13. I went back to school. I went to FAU, and I teach at FAU, Florida Atlantic University.
Wow.
So I'm more of an Owls fan than a Blackbirds fan. But I went, I've been practicing as a therapist since 2013, and I've always been creative as a therapist, but also very much in the traditional therapy box. And I actually really love the traditional therapy box. I really appreciate, the frame that we have and how it's set up to be able to do some really, intense, deep work. At the same time, I was always kind of like wondering about just breaking the frame a little bit. And I always did it a little bit, but there was a part of me, and this was like a very personal part of me that I didn't know yet, which was that the real reason why I didn't do it was because I was afraid of professional backlash.
Mm.
And that's not to put it on other people. I'm not saying that there's a group that would criticize me, meaning it was my own,
Right.
my own stuff, my own thought about what they would think about me.
Right.
And so over the years, like I would break out a little bit here or there, playing music with my clients, doing psychodrama. And, psychodrama is like right on the edge of improv. It's very similar in a lot of ways. And then a few years ago, I had a real great opportunity in the university where I was teaching, without getting into all the details, but I was told from the inside, you have this job, and then I didn't get it. No reason, no explanation.
Wow.
And I was really devastated. I was really, really devastated. And so that was like a Monday, I got the email that said like, good luck on your future endeavors. And I was really confused by that. And then by Wednesday, I had this clarity of, I love teaching and I love teaching at the university. That's not the only university that I can teach at, and
Right.
that's not the only setting that I can teach at. And I might be glorifying this in my mind, but I believe it was that next day that I went and found an improv class, and I was like, I'm gonna try this out and see what happens. And it kind of like fit with where I was up to in that like sort of crisis, which was like, yeah, just keep looking for stuff that aligned with you deeply, because that's the part that's gonna come with you wherever you go. A job is gonna come and go, but your soul is gonna go with you wherever you,
Wow.
Yeah. And when I walked into that first class,
Oh,
it
wow.
blew my mind. It blew my mind. I was like, this is real. Like, this exists. We can play around. We can make mistakes.
I love that. And
Yeah.
who is that? Was there a specific technique that you learned in that first course, in that class?
So the place that I went to, South Florida, has a very small improv and comedy scene. If you're somebody that wants to try out comedy,
Yeah.
you can come down to South Florida and you can be like a top 50 comedian within like a few weeks, because
Wow.
there's not so many of us. Like in New York City, if you're like, oh, I want to do an open mic, you have to like bring people with
Yeah.
you, and it's like a whole thing. Like Florida, there's like 10 comics running around to like all the open mics. That's for stand up. Improv is very small too. So I was fortunate to find, aside from Miami, because I'm in Boca, so it's a little bit far. There's like 2 or 3 places in Miami that teach improv. Then there's one in Davie, Florida. There was one in Boca, one in Delray, and that's all I knew of at the time.
Oh,
and
wow.
It still is kind of like that. It hasn't like exploded or anything. So I went to the one in Davie, and ended up being like my home group. I would go there every week, sometimes twice a week. We did performances together.
Wow.
And yeah, and their style was short form improv. So like, have you ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
So like that style. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always love that. But let me ask you this. There's a personal question that I had. About 20 years ago, I took this amazing course. I always forget if it was called the Meisner's technique or it was just called the Gordon technique.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if Alan Gordon like practiced and taught the Meisner's technique, but it was a fantastic approach to improv.
So you were acting. You wanted to act. Why did you take the course?
Yeah, so I was in college. It was 17, 18 years old in college, and my communications professor says to me, "You should go into acting. I'm telling you, you have it." And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Just take an acting course. I'm telling you." He used to be an actor, I think, in theater,
Mm-hmm.
and he recommended a few places to go to in New York City. I took a course. I fell in love with it. And I'm a pediatric therapist right now, and I utilize that in therapy.
Okay.
With the kids I work with. Just being in the moment. There's a lot of play. There's a lot of back and forth. Talking about it's like emotional stories and spontaneity. All the things that I feel like there's other things I'm not mentioning. But one of the things that came up to me, because I haven't really looked into this approach in 20 years, specifically in the acting world, with the Gordon technique, which connects. I believe it connects improv, presence, listening, emotional truth. Saying a story. That's what I remember. Do you see that when you're working with clients, it helps them be more, I guess, emotionally present and honest? Because I feel like there's so many different methodologies, especially in the pediatric therapy world where I work with kids or adolescents. There's a floor time approach, there's an ABA approach, there's so many methods to the way. There's improv. I guess the question is, does improv also have different like doorways and lenses that you can approach it and treat?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The idea of presence, right? I think that's at the core of improv, and it's really at the core of any human relating that we're doing, right? Like, presence, we talk about it as like somewhat of a all or nothing, like a switch, like either you're present or you're not present, right? But there's so many tiny layers to go deeper into presence. And so like in improv, we have the concept of yes and, which a lot of people are familiar with, right? Where it's like you're agreeing with what is added to the scene, and then you're adding something, right? And that concept is transformational, but there actually are so many levels to how transformational it can get. Meaning yes anding on such a deep level that you start to move in unison almost with the other person. Like, I respect the move that you're going to make so much, and I'm so present seeing you that I started moving almost before you started moving, right? So like the idea of presence has so many layers to it. It's kind of like when you go to the hotel and you look down in that spot that they dug you know what I'm talking about?
No.
They dug all the way down to the bottom of like where the hotel would be if the
Oh,
dirt
yes,
wasn't
yes. Underneath,
piled on top of
yes.
it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're like, wow, it really goes. It's like that. I don't know why that popped in my head just now. That it's like
The
that.
depth,
Yeah,
right, right, right.
you don't realize there's always another layer to.
Mm.
I'll even add this is that the after you do improv for a long time, you get really good at it. Then you come to this kind of like this new moment where you're like, oh, because I'm good at it, that means that I have to reinvest in a new version of yes and because now I think I'm better than the other person, so I'm not listening as much anymore. Like how you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's crazy, right? There's so many layers to presence, and improv does touch on them in different ways and different capacities. But I think a lot of acting technique will bring that out of people too, and then there's a lot of therapy that'll bring that out of people, and even sports. Like I learned about presence from my tennis teacher, that like simultaneously while I was doing improv, like learning, like she's telling me like every time the ball bounces, say bounce. Every time you hit it, say hit. I don't care like what happens, you just have to say bounce hit, bounce hit. Every time I lose my focus, she's like, did you say bounce hit? Like,
Wow.
so yeah, I
I love
think
that.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
great approach. For anybody who's watching who's never heard of improv, we should have really gone into that. How do you describe it how do you just tell people or educate people on what it is exactly?
Yeah, it's really the art of making something up on the spot with whatever raw materials you're presented with in that moment. So it's kind of like, this is an old reference, but like MacGyver, right, where he was like, solving these crazy situations with like a toothpick and a tea bag and a paper clip, and right. So it's like I give you, or actually better, it would be like those cooking shows where like these are your ingredients, right,
Yeah, yeah.
and you have to make something out of it, right. So there's skill to that,
Right.
and you can learn the skill, and also there's like the humanness that you trust your instinct. So it's like some of it is learning skills,
Right.
and some of it is actually just learning to not think past your instinct.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun too.
Oh,
I
so
remember
fun.
the repetition. You ever play the repetition?
Yeah, sure.
It's really a listening game.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting to listen to all the small nuances,
Right.
and go back and forth. It's always going to change.
Right.
How do you utilize that in therapy? If you're working with a client, a child, an adult, or even working with a couple,
Mm-hmm.
how would you utilize it? How would it look like?
So when it comes to like a therapeutic goal, I will, well, let's say like this, like I really studied and continue to study the theory of why improv works, right? And then how it could be then applied to various areas of mental health or growth, right? Because just because it's fun doesn't mean that it's healing, right?
Right.
Then at the same time, in order for you to actually be doing it, you can't like over clinicalize it. You can't say like, we're doing this for the purposes of your brain. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Because then it kind of stifles the person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're thinking too much.
Yeah.
Right.
In their head. Yeah.
Yep. So what I usually do is that I will, we'll talk it through beforehand. This is what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I think doing some improv can be helpful with this. And then if there's buy-in from the client, if they're interested in it, then we'll do it. And then during that time, I won't talk about the issue at all. Wow. Like I won't say like, okay, we're going to challenge your anxiety by doing this.
Right.
Obviously, if something comes up, I might, I'll be like, okay, we're working through that or whatever. But I'll stop them. I'll be like, it's not for now, because I'll even sometimes like put on a character as somebody who's not a therapist. I'll be like, I don't know, ask your therapist. Like I'll let her, yeah.
That's great.
And then afterwards, we'll debrief. So then we'll come back to like that more analytical, clinical setting, and we'll be like, what came up for you there? Mm-hmm. That was interesting because I saw that you retreated or you rejected someone's idea, or depending on what we're working on, right? Or like if it's anxiety and they were afraid to take a chance, and then they took a chance, and then if it didn't go well, was it because of the same reason your anxiety was telling you, or was it because you were just shooting from the hip because that's what improv is, right? Or if it did go well, how does that fit into your larger schema about your anxiety? You're like, right. I have to plan, and then you blurted something out that's perfect. So now,
wow,
right? So we do some debriefing afterwards, and then kind of like refocus it on the clinical goal. That's like the overview of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. Question number one is affect. How important, or how does affect play a role in within the improv model? I don't. Could you call it a model? What do you have? You have CBT,
Right.
DBT. Would you call improv like a something that I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Aside from this question with affect, do you feel like a lot of clinicians, social workers, psychotherapists, other therapists utilize it, or it's just not something that people go for
Well,
usually?
unconsciously, they're utilizing it.
Yeah,
I mean, we're utilizing it right now, right? Like we just met like 20 minutes ago, right?
yeah,
And everything you say, I'm taking in, and then right, that's the yes, and then the and is where I add something, and then you take it in and you add something, right?
wow,
We're improvising right now. Like you said in the beginning, there's no script, really, in no situation. There's never a script.
right.
And so we're always improvising. I think the really skilled clinicians and also relational people are improvising at a high level where they're tuned into the person that they're with, right? Like that's the thing about improv is it's really a human skill, which, if you can deepen it without some sort of training or you learned it from a different place, like great, because it's not like, it's not very specific to only certain people who trained in it. So I don't remember your question. No,
I
I
was
got
talking about
excited.
affect, and
Yeah.
do you feel affect is
Oh,
very
but you asked me about the model of it.
the model?
Yeah, right,
Yes,
right, right,
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
right. So this is very interesting. So I went back to school a few years ago to get a doctorate in social work, and I started improv in the middle of my doctorate, and I was already on track to write a dissertation on a topic which had nothing to do with improv.
Okay,
And I was really grateful that I was already stuck to that topic
right.
because I might have been tempted to write it about improv. And the reason why that's I wouldn't have wanted to do that is because there is something that gets lost when we manualize things and we operationalize things, right? So we'd say, what's the mechanism of improv? And if we're going to test it in this environment, how are we this? How are we that, right? There's some utility to having no research about
Hmm.
something,
Wow.
right? I think so. Right? That, listen, like we can trust our human experience, and
Right.
we can challenge it at the same time. Meaning, if I say improv is helpful, right, and then it comes to my attention that part of the reason why I'm saying it's helpful is because I like doing it, so then I got to do some soul searching. So then I got to go to my therapist or I got to go to my rabbi or whatever,
Right.
right? But like we can also trust our instinct without having a peer-reviewed paper telling us that it was good, right?
Right.
Like I came across this guy's profile on Instagram, calls it skate therapy, and he's in the skate park doing skateboard with people,
And it works.
and he's a licensed clinician. So
Oh wow. So
right, so he has the clinical thought behind it, and one day he posted a peer-reviewed article about how skateboarding could be helpful for people, and I just wrote back kind of sarcastically, like not to him but to the article, as if we needed the research to say that skate parks are enjoyable, right?
right. Right.
Like there's a little bit of like let's trust our human experience,
Wow.
right?
That's powerful.
So yeah, so that's kind of like where in terms of a model. So it's not it people do it, right? Like I didn't invent it.
Right.
Very few people do it. After a few years of not looking at the research, I looked it up to see like what's out there, and I
Right.
got like 12 articles,
Wow.
and 7 of them were from Israel.
Okay.
Because like they were creative and they're out
Yeah.
of the box, and I'm like, okay, you guys are awesome. And that's basically it in terms of like the clinical world seeing it as like a modality.
Right.
But I think a lot of people who would see it as a modality also would see it as in a little bit of conflict with research.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hear that. I totally hear that.
Yeah.
How do you utilize this modality within your personal relationships? Do you
Yeah.
feel like it's changed your relationships?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've always liked joking around. I've always had a good time, doing characters and being funny and all that kind of stuff, like from when I was a young kid, and right.
I've seen some of your stuff. Really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Funny.
Thank you
Very
very
funny.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I always loved it, and it always made sense to me. And I also didn't know how it fits into the larger picture of things. Like I always related very much to Robin Williams,
Oh wow.
and in the way that he was a wild character,
Yeah.
a wild million characters.
Yeah.
I literally actually remember watching Mrs. Doubtfire when I was a kid, and he
One of my
has
favorites.
yeah, right. It's one of the best movies of all time, and I actually got into a bunch of arguments with people on Twitter, people who were analyzing Sally Field's character, his wife. Like, why did she kick him out of the house? Like, what did he do that was so bad? I don't know if you remember the movie, but
Yeah, for sure.
right, like
Yeah.
he threw an over the top birthday party.
Right. She got upset.
She got upset, and then she kind of like separated from
It
him.
was escalated really
And it was
quickly.
escalated quickly, right? It
Yeah.
was like maybe slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
They tried couples therapy. People were arguing. They tried couples therapy. That was the last straw. I was kind of defending Robin Williams there, but at the end of the day, they needed to write him as a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
You couldn't have had it like a wild affair, and then
Right.
like you like him when he's trying to creep back into the kid's
Right.
life, right?
For sure. Yeah, wouldn't work. Yeah.
So that was a smart move in the writing. But
Wow.
when I remember watching Mrs. Doubtfire when I was a kid, and early on in the movie they show him at his job, and he's a voiceover actor.
Right.
He's doing just crazy voices. And I remember thinking like, is that a real job? Can I do that? Like I remember thinking that when I was a kid. Can I do that? That's a really cool job.
Yeah.
So I always related to Robin Williams in the sense of like I get his energy. Obviously, his talent was a billion more times than like the way that people talk about Rabban, like Gedalim.
Right.
Like, I'm nothing. But where I related to Robin Williams, or I used to think about this a lot, is like, how do you function as a person who's so different than everyone else in that regard and has so much coming out of you at all times? Like you're going to be too much at points,
right.
and for years I really it was like a tug of war internally, where it'd be like, okay, if I let some of this out, so like keep an eye on like when it crosses over and then yank it back, right? The implication there is that it's guaranteed to mess stuff up. That's the implication, because you're going wild.
Yeah.
And it's going to cross a line. Just when it crosses the line, yank it back, right? And the whole first part is like just waiting for it to cross the line, right? I mean, yeah.
Wow. Do you feel like that kind of is integrated with we're talking about Gedolim, Torah, having Gedarim. Having Gedarim, you kind of have to filter certain things you say and certain things you do. And then you have to follow halacha. And all of a sudden, over here, you have improv. You're kind of doing the complete opposite. Have you ever like grappled with that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There's a lot that comes to mind from that. Let's say the first like this, right? With Gedarim, that's great. Like we're creating fences around things, and my clinical specialty is with sex and porn addiction. So like I talk about that kind of stuff all the time with people.
Wow.
I'm like, you need to put some fences and then some fences around that fence, and then right, fine. There's also the other side of it, which is if I fenced someone in so much, first of all, it's not helpful, but also it's a little offensive, right? Like think about this, right? Like if you were like, I want to cut back on drinking alcohol, right? And then someone's like, okay, here's what you need to do. You need a sponsor. You're going to a wedding next week, so you need a sober escort the entire time. You need to check in with us to make sure, like
accountability partner,
right?
What have you, right?
You'd be like, but I don't have an alcohol addiction. I just want to drink less, right? So meaning those Gedarim would actually be harmful, right? So I kind of come into it on that side of it. Like we're really good at setting up fences, right? But maybe sometimes we over fence certain things.
Right.
Maybe it's not even actually about like the Torah per se. Maybe it's about some social expectations. Maybe there's some fear involved, but the fear is kind of artificial, right? So I challenge that, and I have to work through that within myself too, like keeping the lines of productive and unifying humor, bringing people together, right? There is a destructive form of humor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
But I think it's too easy to over restrict and then think that we're doing a good thing, because like I talk about all the time, if you're gonna cry on Yom Kippur, you gotta laugh on Purim, like that. You got to do both. You got to do both of them, right? I have nothing against somebody who's, bawling on Yom Kippur. I mean, I wonder why they feel so bad. I mean, maybe I don't know if Hashem wants that from me, but that's my own opinion.
Right.
But like, I want to see you on Purim. I want to see you laughing your butt off. I'm
right.
Give me the whole spectrum. I want to see you. If on Tisha B'Av you don't say hello to me on Simple Story, you got to give me a big hug. Like,
wow,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So we can over restrict, and I want to. I like to pull it a little bit to the other side. You tell me I go too far, then we'll bring it back here.
No, I love how you said that. There's a dark side of humor, and you're trying to really bring positivity, and it's all within, I guess, the social aspect. You mentioned that you deal with sex addiction, porn addiction.
Yeah.
How do you include improv with that?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So the one that immediately connects is that, without getting too clinical here, but sex and porn addiction is oftentimes they call it an intimacy disorder.
Right.
So meaning it's a replacement for real connection, right? So once somebody starts to get some sobriety and they're distanced from the behaviors that are destructive, so then they have to infuse their life with real connection Otherwise, they'll end up back in the behavior, right?
Yes, you have to
And
replace that behavior.
exactly. And you got to go to the depth of it, right? That's where the intimacy deficiency is like, well, if I'm so lonely, then I might as well do something to make me feel less lonely, right? Using the behavior as a replacement. This is an intimate act, but there's no stakes. There's no real relationship here, right? Improv is all about intimacy, right? Because intimacy is yes and, right? Because you have to be giving and not necessarily taking, but like, right? You have to be simultaneously sharing and adjusting and giving, and right, in order to be in an intimate relationship. And so, a lot of times when people are stuck in an addictive habit, they're very centered on what's going to make me feel good, and then bring them into improv. It's like, you're going to let go of that right now, because it's not about, this scene's not about you. The scene is about the scene. The scene is about you and your scene partner. Right? So you have a great joke locked and loaded, and you might be the funniest person in the room. That doesn't matter right now, because this moment calls for you and this person to create something together. If you didn't create it together, you created nothing.
It's very powerful. If somebody watching this, whether they're single or married, or if you're in front of a crowd and you want to create intimacy there, create relationships, and create a very nice environment, what would you recommend? What kind of activities, games, things that people can do that would like kind of like unstifle them and create a very easy environment?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on where the person's up to in that, how blocked they are. Let's put it like that, right? Because I'll meet with people who like they're afraid to do anything, to say anything, So then to say like, oh, you're going to be in the scene, you're going to be a chicken who's waiting for the doctor, like they're not there yet, right? So let's say the very, very basic is, there are certain things that we don't want to do in our lives because it makes us uncomfortable, but there's no actual negative consequence from it, right? So like this example I use all the time is like making funny faces at yourself in the mirror, right? So if you're doing it and you feel, or you have this thought in your head, or you feel like this is stupid, right? And you're in a locked bathroom in a locked house, no one else is in the house, no one else is coming home, literally you by yourself, and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're saying, this is stupid, I should stop doing this. I ask why, right? And so what I say is that, to get the engine started with opening yourself up, is look for low stakes opportunities to try something new. That doesn't mean it's going to feel comfortable. It's probably going to feel uncomfortable. But if you think about what's the negative outcome if it doesn't go well, right? And if you really don't have a really good answer to that question, so then it's like, okay, so this is an opportunity for me to challenge myself. So making faces in the mirror.
Accents, voices.
Accent, I was going to say that, yeah. I do that in my car. I mean, I do it because I'm psycho and I've already, given up on trying to, but yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll do it in person. Like I'll put on an accent like in a store or something just to have fun. During COVID, I used to do a lot of Trump under my mask.
Oh yeah.
I used to say thank you very much. Accents, voices. Another good one is like if you read books to your kids, like commit to it. Commit to the voice, commit to the story, right? Like that, and that. I mean, come on, like how awesome is that? Like telling your kids a story with your full heart.
Right. Yeah, I do it with my kids all the time with Peppa Pig stories.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love when my kids do it less now, but because they just gave up. But when they're like, "No, Daddy, that's not how he sounds," right. And like sometimes, like yes, ending that, they tell me how they sound.
Yeah.
Right. And then they'll give you a version of whatever they think that character's supposed to sound like, and then I try to do it. So like that, like what happens if like it's embarrassing?
Right.
Then what? And I think extending from there, it's like different situations call for different parts of us, right? I often talk about leading up to Pesach, like what do you do for your kids at the Pesach Seder? And if you don't do something, is it because you're uncomfortable? Or is it because like you have this like belief about like how like serious it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
If your kid is 6 years old, right, and you're sitting there going, like, I don't think that's what it was for. I don't think it was written for that,
Wow.
At our Seder, we do a lot of silly stuff. One year we had Moshe Rabbeinu interviewing possible makos, right? And
awesome.
and the makos were like supposed to be like slightly annoying things, not like real torture things, like like can't find the remote for the TV, all the pencils aren't sharpened, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu was there at the table being like, okay, that's good. Hold on. What if we put those two together?
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So you see firsthand how improv really can transform relationships, can transform the way you treat, and it's just a great tool to have
Yeah.
in your inbox, in your toolbox. Excuse me.
In my inbox too.
Inbox and toolbox.
Send me an email.
So after, I guess we're talking about lessons from work, some experiences, maybe perhaps things that you've seen. Somebody came to you about a problem or about a difficulty or challenge, and you were able to try a specific technique within improv. You felt like it was transformational or was something that really helped the person. Can you think of a scenario?
Yeah. I can think of a bunch of scenarios, but what came to mind when you were talking, I kind of want to go with the first thought here, is
Improv.
the improv, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Came to mind was, it's not directly improv, but like with music, right? So I have a lot of musical clients, and I have guitars on the wall in my office. I have a piano in there. Like it's there to play music, and we do play music in session. And I apologize to all my office mates for that on a regular basis. But a few years ago, I was working with somebody who he had so much musical talent, and he was so blocked. And this is the thing, is like, when you're blocked, you don't know that you're blocked because you think there's a reason for it, right? Like, this was me with professionalism.
Right.
Like, there's a logic to professionalism. Like, don't show up in a bathing suit to work. You got to be a professional, right? So, but then it goes all the way to the other extreme, where it's like, now I have to be super uptight, right? Yeah. So this guy was super blocked in his music, and he didn't know that he was blocked. He just had all these like reasons why it's not the right time for me to play music. I have to focus on my job, and just, we all do this, myself included. We're high and mighty about like how busy we are, and then we scroll on our phones for 2 hours, and I'm like, what happened to the busyness?
Right.
And I actually wasn't sure that I was helping him. Like, in our sessions, sometimes we work on the issue of the day, but other times we'd be working on like playing music and trusting your instinct and taking a chance, right? Like putting something out, just sharing it online, and like, sharing something imperfect online, right? We think the internet's forever, and we also forget that you can just take it down. That's something like, a friend of mine told me a bunch of years ago, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. He was like, years ago, you make a CD, it would be in their living room, nothing you could do about it. Right. Now you put it up, take it down, put it back up. Right. So, it's a bunch of years later, he is making music. Like, he's killing it. Wow. And he's loving it. And like, every time I see something coming up from him, I'm like, I know how beautiful it is. Like, I know the depth of how beautiful that is. You know what I mean? Not just the song itself, but like, I see you posting it, or posting a video from a live show or something like that, and I'm like, wow. You're being yourself. Right. You know what I mean? And it was through a lot of that work of like really challenging, okay, there's a discomfort here. I'm not going to discredit that discomfort, but like, let's play that out. Like, what is the actual negative consequence from this action if it doesn't go well? Well, people are going to think I'm this. People are going to think I'm that. People are not going to like my music. If I try to get a producer to hire me, to take me on, and they're going to see this lousy track, like, all those things are like so factual in the person's head. Right. The reality was, he was afraid, and getting him through that fear allowed the instinct to like shoot forward, and it just makes me happy. Honestly, I think of a few clients who are doing that with their music now. Yeah. They're out there. That's awesome. Just killing it. Yeah.
Do you also play, by the way?
Yeah.
You do play?
Yeah,
wow.
I do. That's how I started playing with my clients. And
wow. That's awesome. I love that. You mentioned, for me, Jim Carrey was
he's up there. He's
up there. Yeah. Yep. Him and
Robin Williams.
For sure. Did you ever consider personally being in theater, doing theater, or
no,
acting?
No. First of all, growing up in the film world, you're discouraged from it, but also for a good reason, right? Yes. The world has changed so much. But like, I'm doing all this stuff that a few years ago I would have had to like put my whole spiritual life at risk.
Yes.
You'd have to move to LA, and you have to, go into the whole like Hollywood world. And like, I have a wife and I have kids, and now I'm producing content like everyone is, and you don't have to go through any of that stuff. So I think that's a big piece of it, is that like, there was a real legitimate reason not to do it, right? I always wanted to do it. I used to watch SNL, and I used to study it. And when I was in 11th grade, I did a George Bush impersonation, which was really an impersonation of Will Ferrell impersonating George Bush. And like, it became like a thing in the community. I would go to people's houses, and they'd be like, oh, George Bush is here. And I would be like, this is my opportunity to like, I always wanted to do it. It always made sense to me. and it's just so fun. And then there's risks involved,
Yes. Yeah.
and I'll never downplay those risks. There's so many risks involved.
Yes.
But there's risks involved in everything,
Yeah.
right? And if it's the kind of thing that like I'm staying on top of it and I'm being aware of how things, progress, then it's like all things,
Yes.
right? And then we can end up doing something really great.
Can you talk about for like teenagers or people
Yeah.
in the film world watching? They might say, "Hey, I want to become an actor.
Yeah.
I love that world."
Yeah.
What risks would you tell them they would be putting themselves in?
Yeah. There's the well, let's say like this. This is actually maybe a little different than like what you would immediately think of like from the like religious or spiritual
From
angle,
right, yeah.
But this is true about the improv world too. I warn people that's all the time. You open up your emotions, and usually there's somebody who helped you do that. You usually have a mentor, a coach, and once you open up your emotions from someone's guidance, you're like putty in their hands because you trusted them and then you felt the benefit of it.
Right.
And you're like, okay, so you guide me, right? And there's a lot of people who don't know what to do once they've opened up someone emotionally, or they have bad intentions.
Wow.
And so it becomes like you end up like signing up for a religion without realizing it.
Wow.
And then it shapes your whole way of thinking and being, right? So I tell people that with improv all the time is like, really, get a recommendation from somebody who you trust. That's like, this person is going to be safe, safe to learn from, right? I think about that one. And then I think, and this is a very important message, I think, for today, is like the idea of being famous, quote unquote.
Yes.
And how it's like, there's obviously the risks of like being, my brain is doing old references here. Like, I always think about Scarface, Tony Montana at the end of it. He's dead in his mansion. Sorry, spoiler alert. In front of his own monument that says, "The world is yours, Tony Montana," because the world is going to be his, and he was dead in front of it. Right? There's the risk of obviously all the material success, right?
Yes.
But there's this other risk, which I think a lot of people don't think about, which is losing your sense of like an internal value system because it gets replaced with the external validation.
Wow.
And you won't even realize it. You won't even realize it. You know what I mean?
Can you
like
that quote again?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
external,
I liked it. You say it. Yeah, I want to hear it again.
No, you said it's the
Losing your internal values.
right, losing your internal values to the external validation.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Because then you start to like, you don't realize it. You have, whatever, 600,000 followers.
Right.
And you make a decision, and yes, it's going to be guided by the fact that you have all these people that are interested in you, and right. And there's a controversy going on right now. I don't know if you saw it, but it really broke open yesterday about the couple influencer that aborted their Down syndrome baby. This is going on. This is like on fire online right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, they're like classic influencer couple, and they were excited when they got pregnant, and right. And then they shared this like heartbreaking news that we had to make the difficult decision at like 21 weeks. I think it's something like that. You can look it up. It's all over the place. Because the baby has Down syndrome.
Wow.
And, you think about like the layers of confusion that those people must have to be posting it online, to be doing it.
Right.
To be posting it online. And then now they're upset that people are coming at them with hate. Like you're murdering a child just because you don't like the way that they're going to be, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about a genetic disorder where the kid is going to be on like life support and breathing machines. Right. And I'm very passionate about this, right? We both worked in special needs.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And wow. I'm 100% confident you'll agree with this statement that Down syndrome people are some of the most authentic people you will ever meet.
Absolutely.
And the gifts that they give us, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. The gifts that they give us by being.
Yes.
Right. Like you have to experience that.
Yeah.
You have to. I'm not saying it's easy to raise a child with Down syndrome, and there's a lot of challenges, but like these people they're making a terrible decision, horrible. Then they're posting it online,
yeah.
Right? And then they're disappointed that people don't like it, right? And like that's the kind of stuff like you can get famous, but like where are your values,
right? And
how are you grounded in them? And like, are you constantly behind the scenes tethering yourself to your values, right? Or are you just kind of like letting the followers shape you to the point where you don't even recognize that you just did something which is terrible or harmful,
Yeah. I work with 110 boys that have Down syndrome.
There you go. Okay.
So yeah,
It's right. It's like it's hard to think
horrible.
about. It's
Yeah,
hard
it's
to think
horrible.
about,
Yeah.
right? I try to stay out of like online controversy just because it's like not doesn't usually add that much to like someone's life. But last night I was going crazy.
Yeah.
I was like firing off these tweets, like
Yeah.
it's wild to think like that makes sense. Like they don't
realize.
you know, and it can happen to literally anybody.
Yeah.
You know, I actually once there was a rabbi, a big rabbi online. I'm not gonna say who it is, but a big rabbi online he was saying thank you Hashem. He was writing, in a post, thank you Hashem for getting us this retweet by a famous woman, like a Prutza woman, And I was like, I couldn't help myself. I wrote like, do you think that Hashem wants this from you? Like, you think this is what Hashem like? You know what I mean? Like, and honestly, I don't know. I've never had the challenge of having millions of followers. Like, maybe I will one day. But I also think it's like, let's be honest here. Like, you're a rabbi, and you started this mission to help people, not to be famous, and you're like, oh, she's carrying our mission. I don't know. There's a little bit of ranting.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's definitely, I love it. For anybody who's really just questioning in terms of, or listening, and they're saying, I'm afraid to be fully myself.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend? What would you do?
I'll talk about this a lot, that, everybody has these little sparks of things that really just grab them. And usually there's something that has been grabbing you for a very long time. Like, we just met each other, but what do you do like that you're passionate about? This is what I usually ask people.
Yeah.
What's the thing that you could talk someone's ear off about because you love it and you don't realize that they've been trying to sneak away from you for like an hour, but you're like, I freaking love this thing?
A few things. I would say working on the brain, which I work on different parts of the brain, aerobic exercises, working on playing guitar with the kids, singing with the kids that I work with in therapy.
Yeah.
My passion personally is making your marriage great. When your marriage is great, your family's great. Talking about marriage constantly, consistently. My other passions would be my kids. I mean,
and so these are things, right? That you feel it, right?
Yeah.
And so like those are the things that's where our self exists, right, in those things, right? And it's usually, and my theory is that it always is, but usually you can trace it back to a much younger version of yourself that kind of like hinted at you that this is what you're gonna like, right? I always talk about this. When I was like 4 years old, went to the Farsal's Jewish Center to see Avram Fried, and with Achenu Day Camp, and I remember walking into the auditorium and feeling the bass rumbling in my chest, and I was like, I don't know what's happening right now, but this is the coolest thing that's literally ever happened in my life.
Wow,
4 years old. Like, I remember it. I very much. And actually, also, at some point, I was dancing, and they pulled me on stage, and I was in like the VHS.
They recorded you?
Yeah, I was in the camp VHS, and everybody made fun of me about how I was dancing for a really long time. Another story for another time. I've worked through some of my dancing anxiety, but not totally yet. But usually there are little clues, right? Because I think about, the famous, I think it's the Rambam says about marriage, that it's like you're in a maze and a lightning, right?
I'm not sure. It's a good question.
It could be the Rambam. It could be like Tony Robbins or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
But the reason why we get infatuated, one of the reasons why we get infatuated when we're dating, right? We have this intense love, and then once we're married, it's harder to access that, right?
Yeah.
Is because it's like you're in a maze, and God makes like a lightning strike for like a split second.
Yeah.
And you see the path that you need to go, like where you're going to go to.
Yeah.
But then it's gone, and now you have to get back to work, right? So it gives you kind of a vision. You never heard that before?
No, I have.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Maybe it's like the first phase is
right,
this beauty, and it's just like easy. And the second phase, you have to work for it.
You have to work for it, right? And then when you look at a couple that like they're clearly in love, and they're like 80, and they're like, right, you're like, you guys love each other, you're holding hands or whatever, right? Like, they kind of have the same energy that like a new couple has.
Wow.
In a way, right?
Wow.
And so I think about the same thing with those sparks, is like you get that lightning, you get to see it for like a second when you're really little, and all this other stuff comes in the way. And then likely, if you really were successful, you ended up being, a much more advanced right? And grow a grown version,
version, yeah, the first,
evolved version,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But like you're like we never really change in that regard. I don't think we do.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I ask that to people at the beginning of working with them, and you can ask this to yourself. It's like where's that little spark, and what am I doing with that spark? And it's not about being productive, and it's not about making money on it, and it's not about getting accolades. It's am I do I love that spark?
Yeah, having these
Right?
conversations
Yeah.
gives me a spark.
Heck
You
yeah,
know,
let's go.
when people walk away from this conversation, what would you hope stays with them?
Well, first of all, I was gonna make a joke. I got nothing there. That was nothing that came up. I was thinking about how you put your shoes on just for this, and
Yeah.
I was trying to make some sort of joke there. I got nothing. What do I hope people walk away with? I don't know. Like yeah, like challenge your discomfort. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Challenge your discomfort, right? Like think about your discomfort and ask yourself: is this a discomfort that is giving me information
Yeah.
about what not to do? Like there's a purpose to it, or is it discomfort that doesn't really have a lot of information attached to it, and maybe it's worth challenging, right? And I will lose nothing if I make a face at myself in the mirror. I will lose
Wow.
nothing, right?